Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the Abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. I'm here to talk about Curry Barker's new horror film Obsession. This had a release date last year, but has been in theatres, at least in Norway, recently. And I think internationally it's been out quite recently because I've seen a lot of hype about it. People were comparing it to Hereditary, saying that it was a very terrifying, scary film. But this is also something that PR firms tend to drum up around each new horror film that they want to get an audience for. That said, I was expecting it to be quite compelling, quite frightening, since that was the impression that I'd got. It turns out that the movie was more of a comedy. It was certainly a horror movie in its tropes, and it had some jump scares and it had some shocking moments, but the film, as far as I could tell, was mostly a very black comedy until the last act, where it became more obviously horrific. I want to talk about the different themes of this movie, which I think are maybe the most interesting thing about it. I'll say first that the main character, Bear, is played by Michael Johnston, who I didn't know. Apparently he was in Teen Wolf. And the other main character is called Nikki, and she is played by Inde Navarrete. I'll try not to give super huge major spoilers for this film, but I can't talk about it unless I talk about some of what happens. To give you just the concept for the film, Bear is a pretty avoidant, pretty nervy, pretty shy guy, and he works with Nikki at the local music shop. Nikki is leaving her job, and Bear wants to tell her that he has feelings for her, but he's not really able to articulate it. He's too scared of rejection. Instead, he kind of messes it up, and then when she leaves his car to go into her house, he takes out a gift that he bought for her, which was a kind of wish making stick that you make a wish and you break the stick, and he wishes that she loved him more than anybody in the world, and he breaks the stick. And at that point, Nikki's behavior changes drastically, and she becomes obsessed. She has the obsession of the title of the movie. Nikki, in her obsession, behaves in very erratic and quite frightening ways. She's awake at night. She can make weird movements. She does some very destructive things. She's not only in love with him, she's also extremely jealous, extremely possessive. She doesn't want him to go anywhere. In some ways, this is kind of like a parody of what we think of as the super possessive girlfriend. There's a scene at a party which is really kind of playing on that person we've all met who is too possessive to really let their partner properly interact with the people around them. And that scene, in my opinion, was really, really funny. I also think that Inde Navarrete, who plays Nikki, is just killing this film. It reminds me a little bit of The Smile. She does so many different things. She's kind of creepy, she's intense, she's frightening, she's childlike. To me, her emotional behavior was quite funny. Like, she's obviously pretending to cry at times, and then she'll switch to being quite terrifying and intense, and then he'll say what she wants him to say, and then she'll just okay, and she'll just behave as if everything's normal again. I really thought that she was great, and to the extent that anything in this film is frightening, it's really her performance in combination with a really, really effective soundtrack. Now, what I think is most interesting about this film is the themes around gender and relationships, because the kind of crazy, obsessed, terrifying woman is a film genre of its own. You know, you've got Single White Female, you've got Basic Instinct. There's some other movies, especially from the 90s, that really lean into this trope. And it's a sort of misogynist trope about a woman who thinks that she's in love with a guy, but her behavior is so insane that actually he's terrified of her. The way that this film flips it is it's actually Bear's inability to relate to her that causes this situation. Like, the way the film begins, it seems as if she might be interested in him, but she's also not great at expressing this. Although she is being kind of more flirty and a little bit more open than him. She's telling him some of how she feels about him. She's being a bit playful. And then at some point, she eventually asks him whether he likes her. He kind of, this is your last chance, basically. And he still can't manage it. It also is suggested that maybe she doesn't want to hurt her friend who she worked with, who's interested in him, so she doesn't want to express an interest unless she knows that he likes her. Bear, unfortunately, isn't capable of this. He doesn't want to have to go through the complexity and the uncertainty and the ambiguity of developing a romantic relationship to Nikki. This would require that he would have to navigate their relationship in such a way that she would continue to be interested in him and come to like him more and get to know him and continue to like him even though she knows him better. And instead of risking this, he avoids it, and then he wishes that she loved him more than anybody in the world, because then all of this complexity would be solved. Now, obviously, Bear is not aware that this wish is going to come true, but when it does, he does some quite telling things. When her behavior becomes very erratic and he starts to realize that this is the result of the wish, and he calls a helpline to try to fix it. By the way, try telling me that this isn't a comedy. This guy is ringing a helpline to try to reverse his supernatural wish. And then the guy on the other end of the helpline is sounding very bored and so forth. Like something out of Beetlejuice. Anyway, where was I? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, he's asked first if he wants to cancel his wish, but he doesn't. He says he would just like to adjust it. Even though he knows that he's robbed Nikki of her agency, he doesn't actually want to reverse the wish, he just wants to tone it down a little. And perhaps the scenes that are actually most horrifying in my mind are the ones where you see Nikki, the real Nikki, break through and for a second see what is happening to her, or at one point she is able to actually converse with Bear, and you realize at that point for sure that there are two Nickis. There's her, and then there's one that Bear has created that's actually a fantasy. So it's like Bear can't see Nikki as a whole person, he just sees her as a romantic fantasy, and the film turns this into a metaphor, which is that she's kind of replaced by a demon, and then that demon in some way punishes him for his kind of superficiality or his cowardice in dealing with a woman not being able to relate to her as a full person. In this way, the film is way more subtle than something like Companion, which just made a kind of villain out of the guy, and was also a kind of metaphor about the objectification of women, but was much, much more heavy-handed. The supporting characters are also written very well, and this sort of group of friends and their overlapping relationships is quite convincing in a way that endears you to Bear, even though he's obviously quite flawed, and that also endears you to Nikki in a way that makes what happens to her quite tragic and that touch more horrifying. I guess if I have any gripes about this film, it would be that the kind of camp, comedic nature of the movie undercuts to some extent the degree of horror that it also appears to be going for, and the weight of the themes that I've just been discussing. And another issue that I have with it is that the second Nikki, the demon Nikki, the Nikki that's been conjured up through this wish, her behaviour cannot always really be explained by the wish. Like, the whole point is this is like a monkey's claw parable, right, where what you wish for comes back to haunt you or to punish you, and you're confronted with the reality of your wish. But her behaviour is not necessarily the wish of somebody that loves Bear. Particularly, there's some stuff to do with his cat that's died that I just cannot fully explain from the idea that she's supposed to be trying to show love, unless you just think that, okay, yeah, but this is a demon, or this is a creature that's newly created. She doesn't know really how to do these things, so she's trying her best, but failing dismally. Even then, it's kind of a stretch. Like, some of what she's doing seems to be so bizarre and at times so sadistic or perverse that it can't really be explained within the concept of the movie, in my opinion. So that's a certain weakness. It's almost as if they just thought of some quite extreme or shocking images or sequences, and they wanted to include them in the film, and they thought, well, yeah, but this Nikki is crazy now, so she'll do any crazy shit. But that, I don't know, it doesn't quite stand up for me personally. I guess that's my take on Obsession. I think it does have some other themes worked into it, partly around how a person with psychiatric issues potentially can be exploited at the same time as they're demonized. It has some ideas in it around what it means to be a young adult and how apparently incidental choices can make an enormous difference for your future, and how you're maybe confronted with responsibilities for the rest of your life that you're not necessarily prepared or equipped to really handle. I will reiterate that I thought the performances were good. I enjoyed the film, but I also think it's kind of a bit hyped. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought about it. I'd be really interested to hear how other people have perceived it. And if you're interested in disturbing art, disturbing media, next week I'm going to do a video where I talk about what it is that attracts us to these kinds of expressions, and also do a longer video where I'm going to talk about 10 disturbing songs and the different ways in which music and lyrics can disturb us and why we are attracted to that type of music potentially. So come back and watch that if you get time next week. Either way, thanks for watching this. Click a like if you enjoyed it, and maybe I'll see you soon.